Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from The Federalist dated October 24th that says NBC is helping run anti-ICE ops for Dems. So, excuse me, not cutting that out. So our media just running interference for the bad guys. That's not a good thing, and of course it's a news organization doing it because they've just turned themselves into partisans at this point. They are against the American people. It says NBC News eagerly boosts Democrats who blame ICE for making arrests near schools when it was Democrat open border policies that made those arrests necessary. Yeah, Joe Biden created the problem, and now that Trump's trying to fix the problem, now the news networks like NBC look at it as, oh, now it's a problem. They're trying to get rid of the people that shouldn't be here in the first place. Sorry, got a little bit of a case of the hiccups, probably talking a little too fast here. So it says NBC Propaganda Press News has an exclusive, and it sent a press release about it to other press so all press can report that a handful of Democrat senators have written a letter. Wow, that's a hell of a sentence, but I get it. So sure, senators write strongly worded letters all the time, and often they result in no action, but NBC is marketing this letter as a big deal, doing its part to spread Democrat propaganda. The senators sent the letter, first provided to NBC News, according to the press release, to Education Secretary Linda McMahon, demanding that she step in and ask the Department of Homeland Security to curb its operations around schools. It is a classic do-it-for-the-children ploy. In a nutshell, the letter, which NBC does not provide a link to, of course, asks the Department of Education to require ICE operations to stay 1,000 feet away from schools, that is, nearly 3 football fields. Excuse me. It says, never mind that ICE is in the midst of the messy work of removing the many drug dealers, murderers, and P words there. Again, it's a YouTube word that you really aren't supposed to say. Diddlers, we'll call it. The Biden administration allowed into the country, as the Federalist MD Kill reported. Democrat letter writers want to slow or stop the progress Donald Trump's administration is making in removing these criminals from the streets for the children. It says federal agents continue to use unwarranted, excessive levels of force around Chicago, demonstrating an alarming lack of care or regard for the health and well-being of children, particularly by conducting unfocused, inflammatory operations within close proximity of school grounds, the senators wrote in the letter, according to NBC's press release. So they're trying to emotionally manipulate there, saying it's for the kids, don't do it because of the kids. And it's like, well, they're still going to do stuff, as Kristi Noem is going to say shortly. So we demand you pressure your colleague, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, to reinstate restrictions on federal immigration enforcement operations in and around places of education. And I thought that was going to say something about what she said, but basically Kristi Noem told them to kick rocks. So that's my summary there. It says, as NBC reported, the senators asserted that if society can agree that alcohol, tobacco, and drugs should be kept at least 1,000 feet away from our schools, surely can agree that tear gas, a chemical weapon that causes burning, pain, skin inflammation, and respiratory distress, and other violent DHS tools and tactics also belong on that list. Again, this is emotional manipulation, and it says it's not a fair argument, which I was just about to say myself. It says, while it would be illegal to provide a child with alcohol, tobacco, or drugs, it is not illegal for police to enforce the law by arresting someone for doing these things in a school zone or for breaking other laws. This request is trying to stop law enforcement from doing its job. Yes, it is. It says, if ICE must deploy tear gas near a school, cutting recess short is an option. NBC reported that a Chicago school had to move children inside recently after tear gas allegedly drifted onto the playground. And that sucks, yeah, but at the same time, they wouldn't have had to do that had people in Chicago not decided that they were going to try to assault the ICE agents. So maybe that's where the problem started. What the ICE agents are doing is the effect, it is not the cause. So it is a temporary nuisance for students unless teachers make it something more. Inside, children were fearful after the incident, NBC's press release said. It says, but there is something more frightening than tear gas drifting onto the playground, being that word right there. Again, it's a YouTube word I can't say, but we'll say it's raped, robbed, or assaulted on the walk home from school by a violent criminal who illegally entered the country. Teachers should have used this moment to talk about the consequences people face when they don't follow the rules. Notably, Tricia McLaughlin, DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, told NBC that law enforcement used tear gas because of violent rioters, which is very likely the case. And keep in mind that if it's coming from the left, they're probably lying about stuff. And again, it turns out to be emotional manipulation, like the letter they sent. Because the letter also apparently details an incident when federal agents allegedly forcefully dragged 2 women out of a car in front of a school on the west side of Chicago, violently detaining them without presenting a warrant as children and parents watched on in horror. McLaughlin told NBC that the women were driving recklessly, including weaving between lanes and putting other motorists at risk. Following the driver abruptly stopping in the middle of the traffic near a school, law enforcement approached the vehicle. and the occupants refuse to exit the vehicle and follow law enforcement commands. Yeah, that's going to be a problem whether you're a citizen or not. This is another incident worth discussing with children in relation to the consequences of not following the rules. So the letter was signed by one of my useless senators, Tammy Duckworth, Angela Also Brooks of Maryland, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, Jackie Rosen also of Nevada. So Nevada, you got a couple of useless senators there. Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Corey Crazy Eyes Booker of New Jersey, and same with Andy Kim of New Jersey. And Ed Markey of Massachusetts and New Jersey has got a couple of useless senators as well. And Ed Markey is just a nut job. And other propaganda media quickly repeated the story, just as NBC wrote it, crediting NBC for the information. And I was just about to say what this next sentence says, is that is how propaganda spreads, like nitrates on the cool autumn soil. It says that is like crap on dirt, dear certified reader. So what they like to do, and what they've done with a bunch of stories from the last decade or so, is that they use themselves as sources. So NBC puts this out there, and then CBS will be like, oh, look, NBC did this, it must be true. And then they cite NBC, and the USA Today will go, oh, look, CBS and NBC said that, so it must be true. And it just keeps kind of going on and on from there. So it's just a giant circle jerk, is basically what it is. And again, like I said, they just use themselves as sources. It says ICE is not to blame for arresting illegal immigrants near schools or for any less than desirable side effects of those arrests. Democrats are. They should have stopped Biden from opening the border and allowing unvetted people to enter. But they supported that move, and they continue to incite resistance to ICE and immigration enforcement more generally. Cleaning up the results of unfettered immigration by enforcing immigration law, even near schools, is essential if this nation is going to offer a safe future for the children, and that is the end. So, yeah, NBC acting very emotionally manipulative there, but ICE is doing what they should be doing, which is cleaning up Joe Biden's mess that he made. So, let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.